Good evening, happy Tuesday to you. Hope you had a fantastic day and enjoyed the weather. Today the weather was so good. We're live on Family TV, also live on Family Radio. The show is This Is The Day. My name is Medrin Nyambura. So if you spend 8 to say 12 hours at the office, it's not crazy that you end up meeting your person, say your husband or your wife, at the office. But then comes in the HR with the rule book. And that's what we'll be looking at today, dating at the office with two people who met at the office, so they'll tell us exactly how they did it. And we have a HR practitioner, Francisco Okonji. We also have financial consultant, Roy Okonji. Karibuni sana.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just say I've missed you? I have really missed you.
It's been long.
It's been long. Karibuni sana.
Thank you.
So I'll start with the lady.
Yeah.
Atiwa, did you meet Roy?
In the office.
What? Where? How? When?
In this big bank in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course, as colleagues. I was transferred to this new branch. I was actually employed, a new employee, and he was transferred to this new branch in the village. And that time I was from Nairobi, and I'm thinking, so what is this life gonna be in this village, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then, of course, I didn't expect I was going to work. I was very young. I just graduated from the university. Yeah, so I wanted to just make my life. And then I don't know what happened. Honestly.
That's how every love story starts. I don't know what happened.
Yes.
Roy,
yes.
You're transferred, you see this kachik, and then what happens?
I think I know what happened.
Share.
Yes.
Okay, this is an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm transferred to this new station, and I'm still new. So I'm learning, guys. I'm just getting to know names of people, struggling to put faces to a few names. And then just a few weeks down the line, there is this chick who is just passing here every other time. She appears unique from the rest. Well, my thoughts are not constructed, so really I can't put a finger to what I'm doing or to what is happening. But then one day we find ourselves just doing stories about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So where did you come from? What have you been up to? And things like those. And we talked and talked and talked and talked, like more than an hour.
This is office time?
No, in the evening.
Okay.
Really?
Just checking. I know.
It was in the evening, shortly before we left for our respective homes. And in the course of the chatting, you would feel like this is someone you would want to chat with again and again and again. But that is just the first time. No intentions developed, nothing developed, but the warmth can be felt. Like in this whole office with about 20 colleagues, at least this is the first person we can sit down and just talk about ourselves, not business and nothing serious. And then one thing led to the other. But of course, you know that is not anything. If I say nothing led, one thing led to the other, I'm not saying anything. Then I think we did another story again.
Yes.
And within no time, we would find ourselves just extending the stories. We would then take the stories out of office, and they were becoming interesting. And they became more interesting, and we did them for a while, because we dated close to 2 years while working in the same office. Yes.
Did you have to say that? It's okay. We've moved on now. The employer does not mind.
Yeah.
So you dated for 2 years?
Yes.
Francisca, was there a company policy against dating at the office?
No. In fact, when we were employed,
Yeah.
and of course, we were not even thinking about it. So when the employer during the induction was telling us, you guys spend a lot of time in the office together, so the policy says this and that happens. Okay, like the policy says, that particular policy said, it is okay, because of course we get used to each other, we learn each other, so it's fine if you can have a relationship. Yes, but of course the policy still says,
Yes.
then that one person now will need to be transferred.
Okay.
Yeah, so we were told that during the induction, which didn't make sense at that time because I'm thinking, is it even relevant at this time?
Yeah, I'm here to work.
Yeah, I'm here to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when now we became close, and yeah, things, now when, actually our colleague didn't know. No. We were really hiding stuff, Nobody wants, because of course there's a way other colleagues would treat you. Of course, there are other people who are maybe also interested. Yeah, so it's a lot of drama there. So we were playing, we were keeping it cool. Yeah, but of course we were meeting, we were doing what we had to do for the 2 years. Until now we made it official.
Wow. Yeah. Was there any conversation between you and management where they found out you were dating her? Was there any conversation?
At some point, yes. After a while, the manager was a bit friendly.
Okay.
So it was someone you could, or I could, approach. So after a while, of course, a few colleagues have started knowing. They've bumped into us in the streets a number of times. They've developed theories. They've proved theories and things like those. So one day I approach him. I tell him, sir, this is happening. And I'm just here to give you my word that I'm going to keep it within policy, within professionalism, and that there isn't anything you should be worried about. However, if you have anything you may want to advise me,
yes,
then you can let me know.
Okay.
He was an old man who retired before our wedding. So he looked at me, he encouraged me, he understood, he was a friend.
Okay.
And then as we continued our things, he just told me to ensure that it doesn't affect work. But he reminded me that should we confirm it, convert it into marriage, then one of us will have to leave for another branch.
Okay.
And so we knew that was going to happen, but at least we continued keeping things under the waters for all that while.
Okay, that's interesting. Was it important for you that he's the one who went to the boss?
Yes, okay, I didn't even know.
Did she even know?
I didn't.
You didn't
He
know
just
that?
confessed.
Okay.
He just confessed. I didn't know myself. But of course, there's a day that the boss called me, our manager now called me, and just had a chit-chat, like, Francisca, how are you doing? I was a performer, so of course he started by, performance, you're doing well. So what about this in your life? Are you seeing someone?
Of course, I'm seeing someone. Yes.
Yeah, and of course I said, nothing serious, but I'm seeing so and so. So he's like, okay, he's a good guy. And if you guys will be serious, then Nata nitaleta ng'ombe yangu. He don't give you a cow.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't much of a big deal. At least he understood. Of course, different people handle it differently, but that's how he approached. I didn't go tell him myself because I couldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, but at least he's the one who approached me. He didn't tell me that he even went to the manager. He's telling me today.
Don't you love this show where a couple find things years after marriage? Yes. Roy, I'll ask you a question. Should the man go to the boss? Because in most cases, I was even telling you earlier, the few companies I've looked at, in most cases, the ladies suffer. You'll either be fired because they'll compare, say the gentleman is maybe an executive, the lady is his junior, the ladies will suffer the most. So should the gentleman approach the boss?
It will depend. In many cases, it's highly likely that the gentleman will be the one to approach the boss. But again, it depends with who the boss is in this case.
Okay.
Maybe at that particular point, it could be a boss who is more closer to the lady than the gentleman. Then we could use the lady as an avenue to speak it out with the boss.
Okay.
So it depends with the relationship that exists, the nature of the boss, the approachability of the boss, and things like those. However, it is important that at a certain point, then you have to find ways of just engaging the boss on the same to find out, because there are those things you can't really hide like forever.
Yes.
We tried for a long time. we actually were successful for a very long time. Yeah, but this is a tiny town, and even if it were a big town,
yes,
you risk bumping into guys once or twice here and there, And when that started happening, you know, it will start with one person, the theory will develop, another person, one day they will meet and share the two theories, and then they will be able to put together and make a statement or meaning out of it. So it becomes important that then you guys need to figure out how you can just get the opinion of them.
Okay.
But there are cases where the boss may not be approachable. So it might take you a while trying to just cover things up as you learn the situation, as you try to figure things out. For how long are we continuing like this? Is it possible we look for other avenues of maybe one person exiting? That is if the boss is not approachable.
Okay.
You know, it could be an organization that maybe is a one-branch organization. So in a smaller unit like that one, then the stakes could be high. Because again, then if the boss is not one you could easily talk to about such things, then you guys begin to think about your own avenues of making your thing survive. Otherwise, you can go disclosing and again it backfires.
That's true.
Yes, so you have to really do an assessment of the situation and then see the best way for the two of you.
Okay. Let me ask you, Francisca, in the case where the boss is male, and the lady is, the boss is male and the lady is a junior. There's usually a situation there where you might be accused of being favored or sexual favors. God forbid you get a promotion and they are the people you answer to. So is that a risk for a lady who's trying to date at the office?
It is a risk. And I think other companies have gone ahead to put it in their policy that you cannot date someone who is your immediate report or boss.
Okay.
Yeah, because definitely there's a way he will treat you, he or she will treat you that is not, of course, same as the other colleagues. So there are other companies that are very clear on that. But of course, others are not. So yeah, you can. But of course, there are so many issues. You know, even when you're doing something just out of goodwill or just like the other, it can never be the same. You know, it can never be the same. Yeah, so it is, we really need to be very clear on it. Mostly if we are to do policies, let the policies be clear. You know, if the policies are clearly outlined, then there cannot be issues. If, for example, you cannot date your boss or you cannot date your direct reporter, for example, then, of course, if that happens, then it's at a different level. You know what to do. Yeah, so mostly it will work against you.
Okay.
But of course, the lady suffers. Like in my case, I was not even consulted at that point after the wedding.
You need to tell us.
I just found an email that I'm supposed to be leaving for.
You're going to tell us that story after we listen to the music, because I can't believe you're not fired, but you were moved.
I was not fired, I was moved.
Utatueleza. First, we listen to the music, and it's Hawk Nelson with the song Sold Out. That new jam with Pitson and Amani G, that amazing young lady who's doing awesome stuff, and the song is Nipoa. If we all discovered our talent at that age, anyway. Francisca,
yes.
Mbona unanichekesha before tuende hewani? We talked about the risk that there is when the lady is dating a senior. Then let me get to you, Roy. If it's the flip side, and today I interviewed a gentleman where for him it was the flip side. He dated his boss. When that happens, is it possible for you to continue respecting the boundaries at work? Is that possible?
Yes, it is possible.
Okay.
You know, when you date at the workplace, it is a serious test to your discipline. You already put yourself on the firing line, and you now have to demonstrate that you guys can be able to demonstrate how mature you are.
Okay.
Right. So it is possible, but it is not easy.
Okay.
To keep the work ethics and to maintain professionalism. Even where you are still on the same line, forget the boss, even where you are on the same line, it is still a difficult thing. For us, for example, she was not a direct report to me, but her role required my input for it to be successful.
Yeah.
All right?
Yes.
And she was not alone in that department. There were like 6 of them. In the pack of 6, I think there were 3 ladies and about 3 or 4 gentlemen. So all their work comes through me. And I can tell you with all the confidence that at no single point did I offer her preferential treatment in terms of processing her work.
Okay.
Because I had served in that department from where I was before I was promoted to this branch. And I understood the plight or whatever guys in that department would go through. So when I came here, I already, excuse me, had a commitment to really just be professional in terms of processing whatever it is they bring to my desk.
Okay.
And so when we started our thing, I told myself that I would just do it first come, first served. And I struggled hard to just maintain it. You know, you have a pile of things, and there's implication if some job doesn't get done.
Okay.
But here I am. I would rather work till late, serve all of them, but maintain first come, first served, my own policy.
Okay.
And I did that successfully within that period. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the world might speculate. That's up to the world. But you have to set your own standards. You have to know that now the stakes are higher than they have ever been before.
Okay.
So if the lady is your boss or the man is your boss, the stakes get to another level. But it is possible to maintain the work ethics and professionalism, but it is not one of the easiest things.
At least you're honest about that. Before I get to ask you, Francisca, whether or not this is the way to go, because again, you're spending too much time at the office. One of our producers asked a few Kenyans whether they date at the office. Please note the answers and the gender, and then we'll talk about it.
No, I would not do this because I think it would affect my job. It would affect my job, my work, and maybe it depends. Sometimes we may have some issues in the office with each other, and then we might bring them into the office, which is not very good. Or maybe if we try to hide them, they will still affect us in one way or another, and maybe affect our performance in the workplace.
No. Because hatutakuwa official, tutaingiza mapenzi kwa kazi. Yeah.
I can say yes. Because kama tumefall in love hapo, we just continue with the love stuff, yeah.
Don't you think it will affect your performance?
Kitu yenye unaweza fanya hapo ni concentration. As in, you don't have, to put, I know it's hard, but you can try to put your concentration to your work instead of that, relationship stuff.
No, personally, I can't. Because that will be, personally, I think it will interfere with how I work. It may make me feel like I'm squeezed somewhere that I can't work. I need my space to work on my job. Job is something that you keep professional. As long as you have someone extra that is a hindrance. When a woman is there and love is difficult to deal with, when you'll do things wrong because of that person who is there. She's a hindrance when you're working.
Okay, for me, I can't date because when you date somebody whom you are working with, there can be a favoritism in the work, and there will be inequality in your organization.
Okay, to date someone, you need to find the values you want. So if she's in your office, I don't see any problem. I can, as long as she has got the values I need in a woman. Yeah, I'll definitely do.
No, that is not advisable, because a colleague should remain a colleague. And first, this can affect your performance, because basically you should just have a colleague as a colleague, not having an affair with them. Yeah. For good performance, you have to work as a team, not having anything attached to, how do you call it? Your personal life should not be related to work. It will really affect the whole thing.
Let me tell you, if you're just joining the show, we're talking about dating at the office. And Kenyans, as I say, you give me life. Now, I say that you look at the gender and the answers. 3 men said no. And then 1 lady said yes. Actually, 2 ladies said yes. The other one was a maybe. And the gentleman who said hindrance. Mwanamke atakuwa hindrance.
Yes.
So Francisca, as a HR practitioner, is it something you'd advise for people to date at work?
Okay, from my personal experience, yes.
Okay.
Depending on where we are at that time. If it's okay, the policy needs to be very clear. From, of course, the HR perspective, the policy needs to be very clear. You know, all companies with policies on different matters already are safe. Yeah, because they're able to cover a lot of stuff regarding the relationships. If, for example, you cannot date your direct report, for example, or you cannot, there are very many parameters that are looked into. Yeah, so once the policy is there, yes, then, and if it allows, yes, of course, my very genuine opinion is that we should allow. We stay 8+ hours in the same office. We understand each other, you know. We are not pretending. You know, with your colleagues,
but then you don't
we do
pretend.
real stuff.
Their colleagues who have X-Files on me.
Yes.
You do not pretend.
Yeah, you do not pretend. We are very real. So that means when you develop a relationship, we already understand each other so well. There's no pretense, and you know, we are so real. For me, if it is okay, and maybe okay, unless maybe we are saying we can do it for big organizations, so that in case such happens, then there could be transfers or such, because the problem now, issues come when now this relationship does not work. And then this man has to date another woman in the same office. Yeah,
I am not mature enough to deal with that situation yet.
I know. So it is because of the past experiences and history that now makes people make whatever decisions they've made. So depending on where the company is coming from, but of course from where I come from, it is okay to date in the office.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody wants you for HR. Let me ask you, Roy.
Yes.
What would you say? She's touched a bit. Your friends, you know each other. But what are the upside? What's the upside of dating somebody at the office?
You know, when you date at the office, you guys have a chance to have many date hours, or rather dating hours. You've seen guys who say they've dated for 10 years, but if you look at the hours they've been together, perhaps they meet twice in a year, so probably they've dated less than 100 hours.
Okay.
But when you date in the office, you have chance to really just get time to bond, know each other quite a lot. Like we got to a point where we would be dating every day, like have our time every day. So you can imagine every day for 2 years.
That's a lot of time.
That's a lot of time, right? And that would be advantageous if you guys are determined to move in a particular direction.
Okay.
Okay? But guys who may not be determined to move the relationship to some direction, some graduation direction, then will not see perhaps anything good in having a relationship from the office. And I like the guy who said hindrance.
Use that word twice. Hindrance.
Yes, but I want to support him. The reason why many companies will be against dating in the office is because the people who can sustain a successful relationship that does not affect the work are very few.
Okay.
Are very few. Number two, we will have many people who will just come do casual things, right? Like date today, quit next week, date another person next week, and things like those. Then the emotional balance of all these people is also put to test. And guys will begin fighting in offices. I have seen it happen.
Were they
physically? Yes.
Okay.
Guys will begin to fight. The work will not be done. People will be hitting back because, you know, perhaps somebody left the other, and so the other wants to hit back. They can choose to sabotage your work.
That's true.
It is the only avenue they have. So from a company's perspective, I understand where the company is coming from. The company wants to safeguard their interests because this is a business that needs to be run, and therefore without a code of conduct, then work might not happen if we just allowed things to happen. However, in the realization that these are human beings that we have employed, and because they spend over 80% of their daytime here,
together.
Chances are so high that intimate bonds will begin to emerge. Then we agree to come up with a policy, and we will either say it is allowed to this extent, it is not allowed to this extent.
Okay.
So it's because the number of guys who can keep it and remain professional is very small. Because it's not an easy thing, as I said. It is not easy.
When you hear a man say it's not easy 4 times,
it is not easy.
We say it over and over again. Francisca, what would you say are some of the pitfalls you'll have? Because we've talked about the lady having to lose her job.
Yeah.
But also you were told to leave.
I was told to leave.
Why?
I actually just found a letter. I remember initially a few months ago I was transferred, like I was to go to a different branch.
Yeah.
And then my boss then said, no, Francisca is a performer, I want her to remain in my branch.
Okay.
Then now when we had our wedding, he had left.
He had left.
Oh, he had left. Yeah, so we're now
The
the other
good boss?
The good boss.
The one
left.
giving a cow.
Yeah, the one giving a cow. And in fact, we should be looking for that cow now. It's long overdue. Yeah.
He gave it in bit.
Oh, he gave it
a portion of it.
Okay. So he should clear the balance.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I just received a letter, and I'm already transferred. You know, when we were coming from our honeymoon. Of course, it was not easy. I was not consulted at that time because, yeah, you know, now when policy says, you know, this thing of policies, yeah, the policy says, of course, yeah, so it is, I don't know why it's usually the woman who's supposed to leave. In this case, I was actually not even reporting to him. But of course, like he said, our work was interrelated. So, of course, yeah, and the policy says that I should move. But it should not always be like, it's the woman to move. You know, you can tell the guys to decide. You can also tell the woman, call the woman and say who is to leave. Why is it that it's always the men who are called to decide? I mean, yeah. So can we just be fair in this thing? We didn't choose. And both of us found ourselves in there. So we should be given equal chances to just say, it is fine, it happened, yeah, it's unfortunate or it's fortunate. But then can you now allow us choose? You know, when you call the man, it's the man to say, most times you, of course, are preferring him to stay. So in a polite way, you're telling me, Francisca, you're supposed to move.
When you talk about patriarchy, people think we're building it in our minds. It exists. Because I was telling you, the gentleman I talked to on radio was called and said, you know, decide who's leaving.
You know?
The lady was not consulted.
You know?
Yes, you've mentioned one, you might have to leave. How did you deal with that when you heard that she was leaving? Not the emotional part first. Work related, because she was a performer. How did you deal with that?
Now policy was here, and policy had dictated. So for me, what I had to deal with was not the job, it was the emotional bit.
Okay.
Because we had really bonded. You can imagine seeing each other every evening. Because then again, one of the strategies we would use to just keep the thing afloat would be to restrain ourselves when we are in the office. It was like drama. You know, you just have to act like there is nothing going on here. She's just passing here. You would have wished to do something, but you can't do so. Okay. So you have to pile that until the end of the day. And then we would meet in the evening to do our stories. We would do our stories till midnight. Then I would be escorting her through thickets and bushes and rocks at 1 a.m.
Not funny.
So that tomorrow when we meet in the office, there is nothing.
More like you're too sleepy to even notice the other person. 1 a.m., Roy.
Yes, we got used to it.
And you know, we are staying with colleagues. Of course, in the rural areas, the housing is not as much. You know, the very good houses are just a few. So of course, it's usually these people who are working. Yeah, the working class of that town are the ones who are taking these houses. So more often than not, we are actually colleagues and neighbors and everything.
Like where she was living, her house would be the first one. The second house is colleagues. The other house is another colleague, like that. Like that particular place had like 4 or 5 colleagues living there. Where I was living, we were 3. But then we would play our game in such a way that these guys took so long to realize that something was happening.
Mm-hmm.
But you realize then we have to operate nocturnal. So we would be agreeing after work. Then we would link.
Yes.
She would either come to my place. Then we would just do our stories till very late. So it became a habit.
Okay.
Became a habit. Of course, it carried its own risks. Like when I'm taking her and I have to interact with dogs at night, and we would be going through people's fences. I'm holding the barbed wire for her to pass, and it was fun. But that is what our story is made of. But what we were in essence doing is to keep the thing afloat, so that while in the office, it is easier for us to act like nothing is happening.
Okay.
Because that is what policy requires. So when she got transferred, policy had policy had said, and so we were just to deal with it. So you've been transferred to this station, so what can we do? Of course, now we can't meet every day. So thank God, again, it was not very far away. It was like 1 hour's drive.
Okay.
So Wednesdays and Saturday after work, I would have to go.
Okay.
But you see, that was a break from the norm. You know, when you break from a daily routine to making it a twice per week kind of thing, it really was a big thing emotionally. But work-wise, you know, work has to continue.
Work has to continue.
Work has to continue. So there is nothing really serious about work. You just figure out. It's just the same way, like if somebody resigned, whether they were a performer or not, work has to go on.
Okay.
Yes.
Hey, Francisca, you put a new twist to real love. You are crossing through barbed wire.
You know?
It was that serious.
It was that bad.
Charles is saying that dating in the office and a couple of question marks, it's quite challenging and can only be left to the most disciplined. Others, it's really difficult. We'll look at exactly how you do it and also talk to the managers as well from your perspective on how they should handle it. But first, we'll listen to Switchfoot and then we'll answer your questions to 0316 0786 316 316. You Came Running, amazing song by Laura Story. We're live on Family TV, also live on Family Radio. We are talking about dating at the office, and you're all going to kill me with the memes. Skeni he. When a girl is in love, no one knows it except the girl. When a boy is in love, everybody knows it except the girl. Sounds familiar?
Yeah.
That's very familiar. Also, there's somebody who said, where's the funny one? The one I just read to you. Oh, when you tell somebody I love you, and then they say, thank you. Then you say, no problem. Now I feel kabisa. Charles from Mombasa, you've just told me self-discipline here is the most tested. For example, ability to control your impulses, emotions, desires, behavior. Otherwise, you burn your own fingers. Thank you. Shout out to everybody in Mombasa. And somebody said, Kanyabu, this couple is just talented, totally talented, saying that you're doing a good job, Asante. And yes, there's more to talk about. Sasa nina swali lingine. You touched on the heartbreak.
Yeah.
When they leave you and they go for somebody else, because breakups happen. Even if you're courting, you're bound to break up.
Yeah.
How do you stop yourself from putting laxative in somebody's food? How do you make sure you do not kill anybody? How do you deal with that?
Mostly, of course, as HR, when you're allowing relationships in the workplace, then you have to know, to have provision for, in case anything happens, what happens. So you should have mechanisms. You should maybe have a counselor at the workplace. Because like today, we need counselors naturally, even without relationships, because there's a lot of pressure out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we need people who can counsel people in case there's a breakup. But of course, we need to be very clear, even in the policy, when this happens, what happens. You should control, of course, yourself. If you cannot be able to control yourself, then there's a means we follow, because we would not want people to poison people.
Laxative is not poisoning.
No, yeah.
It's just making someone have a longer day.
I know.
Yeah.
To make people have a longer day, and of course it can affect the work.
Yes.
Because if I can decide to just go on a go slow. Mostly if he's my boss and I know it will affect his deliverables as well. And he will not approach me because he knows what we've done to each other.
Yes.
Yeah, so of course, yeah, we need to be very disciplined, but of course the policy should try as much as possible to have provisions for everything. And if they can't work together, then clearly you need to be transferred to a different department unit or something. Something needs to, so when we allow HR to make some of these policies, we should be all inclusive, have provision for people to be taken care of course, emotionally, so we need to be cancelled, but we also need to know, so in case it happens, what happens.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you allow, of course, it comes with other risks. That's why other companies are very clear, we are not allowing this, so that you deal with your own domains if you put yourself into such,
They don't want that drama.
Yeah, so it should be very clear.
Okay.
No gray areas.
Now, for you, Roy, men are really good at hiding their feelings, right? It's sometimes us who will throw the water in your face. But how do you deal with, you've broken up with a lady, she's walked away, you probably want to date somebody else, or they end up dating somebody else. I'm just thinking psychologically, work becomes a nightmare. So how do you deal with that?
Yes, it does. Actually, when you begin to get into an office relationship, even before HR gives you their policies, you guys need to, you as a person need to have your own policy. A relationship, you also need to have the end in mind. A breakup is a possibility. It will not be a strange thing. So you should be asking yourself early enough, just in case it happened, how do I handle it? Because we have read stories of people who have committed suicide when that happened.
Okay.
However, the greatest asset you can have is your emotional intelligence.
That's true.
So if you are able to handle such a situation, then you're a sober person. Now, so how do you handle it? First of all, you need to agree with the reality that it is possible. It can happen. When it will happen, according to the policies of this company or the nature of this company.
Yes.
If it is a one-branched business, like this is the workplace, we don't have other branches. So if a breakup occurs, do I have the strength to stay here and see this lady date another man or this man date another woman?
Yes.
If you realize you do not have the grace, you need to begin asking yourself, so what will you do should such a thing happen?
Okay.
Including maybe exiting, because all of us cannot be emotionally mature at the same rate, at the same level. So you have to know yourself. Are you able to handle it? If you realize you're not able, then you might need to look for maybe counseling, like she mentioned, so that then somebody else professionally can help you cool down. Sometimes it doesn't even have to wait for a breakup. That's why I started by saying it is the highest test of discipline.
Yes.
Because you're in the same office. You tend to want to be possessive, yet you remember that you are in the office. In the same office, there could be another person with a crush on the same person.
There's always a Brian who likes somebody.
And you have to compose yourself. You, at some point, you might actually know this is the guy or this is the lady who has a crush on this.
Yes.
But then you have to compose yourself. Otherwise, you will rise from your seat and confront. Okay. And that will turn into something else.
Okay.
So that would be the highest test. Those are the things we would go through, or rather I went through. Did you go through them? I don't know.
Was there any other girl?
But you see, because where we were, it was like a hardship zone. So ladies were not posted there in plenty.
Okay.
So you can imagine any girl coming into the office, like 30 eyes are looking.
Really?
Yeah, if you are like 15 men, those are like 30 eyes looking at this one chick who was coming. And therefore, you have to be sober enough to realize that there will still be other eyes. Even after you have spotted and made a move, there could be other people who are still looking for an opportunity to make a move.
Okay.
And so you work on yourself, you work on the relationship, safeguard what you can safeguard, but have the emotional power to handle it when it happens.
Hey, let me tell you, I'm not that mature, by the way. The Lord is still working on that side of me. I
most
can't.
people are not.
I cannot,
Most
because
people
it's
are
really, it's your heart being broken.
Yeah.
Yes,
Your
yes.
heart being broken here. And people actually take transfers if they have to. I know people who've taken transfer to hardship areas because of this relationship that happened, that they also had eyed that lady, for example. So they opt for transfer, yeah. But of course, if it's one company, it's just one branch, maybe you can take leave. You know, there's a lot.
Yeah, to just cool down.
Yeah, to just cool down. Which is not easy, of course, when you still come back. The heart is.
And that's where the therapy comes in. Shout out to let me say this in Kikuyu, Kefudu from Syokimau, but it's written as Kibudu, Syokimau Machakos. Thank you for tuning in. So there's somebody who said, where? I loved someone who feels that I'm her boss. Oh, nakwambia maneno ni ngumu. Anyway, it didn't make it and she's still my assistant. I'm so sorry. I'm not laughing at your trouble. Okay. So Francisco is the HR. What do we tell the managers in about a minute? What do you tell them in regards to how they deal with office romance?
One is that we are dealing with people and not machines.
Okay.
We should appreciate that fact. HR is changing today. You know, Kitambo is used to be that personnel management. So it's changing to, of course, it's human resource. So it's human. And you're not machines, you're not computers. So as supervisors and managers, we should, one, of course, understand that bit, that they're human, and of course things are bound to happen. We don't have control over who we love and when to love, and so we also find ourselves in these things. If the company now, of course, as managers or HR, we should of course now engage our employees, mostly the young people, and maybe explain to them what the policy says. If it supports or not, they should be aware. And of course, they should always guide people. They should actually be willing to assist, because young people are getting hurt there at the workplaces because of relationships.
It's really true.
We should actually go out there and support these people. At times, of course, we don't choose. Matters of the heart, it just happens.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So we should always support these young people and offer guidance.
Okay.
It will take a lot of energy and a lot of work at times, but yeah, we should do that.
Okay, I like that. Again, do you want to be everybody's HR? That's what everybody is asking. Akwa to HR rating. Somebody who's responded to you and they said, what? He speaks of breakup with such a relaxed attitude. Dating a classmate or a workmate is always so tricky because of that breakup moment. Joyce Omamo, shout out to you saying, hi, I'm keenly listening. I wish I had the grace to overcome breakups. Really enjoying the show. Joyce, you and me both. I'm not that grown yet. Also, somebody saying, I broke up with my girlfriend. We were both in the school choir. Couldn't handle the pain, so I quit choir. Was it a smart decision? Close it up for us. Should he have quit?
Well, as I had mentioned, you look at yourself. And that's why we make a lot of noise about self-awareness. So according to this person, their awareness told them that they were not in a position to handle what happened. For them, quitting choir was a safe way to handle it.
Yes.
Because you are also not going to remain in choir and you do not have the power to handle the situation.
Yes.
And that is how we have found people resort to weird options of handling the situation.
Yeah.
Sometimes taking off is a better thing. If you realize that, as you're saying, maybe you're not mature enough to handle the emotions of the moment, you can take a break from whatever it is to just cool off, or perhaps learn other things and appreciate other things.
Roy, I have to cut you off. We're out of time. I'm so sorry.
It's
but I'm so happy you came. You guys are one of my favorite people. Asanteni sana. Maybe a quick heads up. They've touched on emotional intelligence, and we've done that show before. So just go on YouTube and look for This Is the Day Family Media, Emotional Intelligence. Watch it with a pen and paper. You'll be fine. But whether to date at the office or not, sisi tumekupatia knowledge. What you do with it is up to you. Kesho.